Every 24 hours, the United States spends over $2 billion just on interest for its national debt. As of early 2026, the national debt has surged past $38.5 trillion. For the first time in American history, we are spending more on the interest of past spending than on our entire national defense budget. We are a superpower running out of room to maneuver, but what if there was a $4 trillion reset button hidden under the Arctic ice? In 2019, the world laughed when the idea of buying Greenland first leaked. By 2026, the laughter has been replaced by a cold, hard calculation. As of March 2026, Washington has codified this interest into a formal trade policy, one that has already sent shockwaves through the global markets. President Trump has made his stance clear. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. He has even doubled down, stating, "We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. I would like to make a deal the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way." This is not a joke. It is a hostile takeover of the world's most strategic asset, and the US believes it is being forced to act before the Arctic becomes a Chinese lake. To understand the urgency, you have to look at the Greenland Ultimatum issued in early 2026. On January 17th, the US officially announced a 10% baseline tariff on all imports from a group of key European allies, including Denmark, the UK, Germany, and Norway. The administration has signaled that these levies will escalate to a punitive 25% by June 1st, 2026, unless a comprehensive framework for the transfer of sovereignty is established. The US can no longer tolerate a passive European landlord managing the most strategic real estate in North America. Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. It is vast, 3 times the size of Texas, but inhabited by fewer than 57,000 people. For decades, there has been a growing independence movement in the capital, Nuuk. Greenlanders control their police, their courts, and their natural resources. But they have an Achilles heel: money. Greenland's economy is fundamentally dependent on a $600 million annual block grant from Denmark. Without this cash, their civil services, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure would collapse. But to the US Treasury, $600 million is a rounding error. The strategy being formulated in the Situation Room is simple: outbid the Danes. By offering a direct aid package of $2 billion a year, the US can effectively buy the loyalty of the Greenlandic government, bypassing Copenhagen entirely. This is the brute force of the US Treasury being used to drive a wedge between an island and its colonizer. This story didn't begin with a tweet, it began with the very birth of American expansionism. The acquisition of Greenland has been the white whale of US foreign policy for over 150 years. In 1867, Secretary of State William Seward bought Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. He was ridiculed, they called it Seward's folly and a frozen wasteland. Today, the strategic and economic output of Alaska makes that $7.2 million look like the greatest investment in the history of finance, but Seward wasn't finished. His 1868 report explicitly identified Greenland as the next necessary step to encircle the North American continent and secure dominance over the Atlantic. He saw Greenland as the gatekeeper. The idea resurfaced in 1946. President Harry Truman, understanding that the next war would be fought over the North Pole, offered Denmark $100 million in gold for the island. While the Danes refused to sell, they conceded something more important. They allowed the US to stay. In 1951, Greenland effectively became an American military protectorate through a defense treaty that birthed Pituffik Space Base, formerly Thule, the northernmost US military installation in the world. Today, that Cold War legacy is evolving into a 21st century necessity. Trump has argued that if Russia or China wanted to occupy Greenland, Denmark could do nothing to stop it, but the US can. This is the Monroe Doctrine moving to the North Sea. The US is betting that Denmark will eventually realize the asset is too expensive to hold. But if diplomacy fails and intelligence shows China making a move, the US has not ruled out military options. Why is the US willing to risk a trade war with its closest allies for this island? Look at the kill switch currently held by Beijing. In 2025, the world received a wake-up call when China introduced aggressive export controls on heavy rare earth elements, REEs. These minerals are the vitamins of modern warfare and the green transition, essential for everything from the magnets in your Tesla to the guidance systems of an F-35 fighter jet. China currently controls 80% to 90% of global REE processing. This move effectively gave Beijing a kill switch for the Western defense industry. Greenland is the solution. Geologists estimate it holds one of the largest undeveloped deposits of rare earth metals on Earth. The Tanbreez Project in southern Greenland is a game changer. It is estimated to contain 28.2 million metric tons of rare earth elements, with over 27% consisting of the highly prized heavy rare earths, far higher than the global average of 5%. In June 2025, the U.S. Export-Import Bank sent a letter of interest for a $120 million loan to fund the Tanbreez mine, marking the administration's first direct investment in an overseas mining project of this scale. By March 2026, the Board of Critical Metals approved a $30 million acceleration program to fast-track the project toward production, with first ore production targeted for late 2028. Washington has already pre-sold 75% of the mine's future concentrates to U.S. and European partners. Add to that 17.5 billion barrels of undiscovered oil and 148 trillion cubic feet of natural gas off the coast, and the value of Greenland reaches upwards of $4 trillion. Buying Greenland today is like buying Amazon stock in 1997. Just as the British seized the Suez Canal to protect their lifeline to India, the U.S. is securing Greenland to protect its technological lifeline. As the polar ice cap recedes, two new shipping routes are opening, the Northwest Passage and the Northern Sea Route. These are the Suez Canals of the 21st century. Using the northern route can cut the distance between Shanghai and Hamburg by up to 40%, saving millions in fuel and weeks of travel time. Whoever controls Greenland controls the eastern gate of this passage. If America owns it, the Arctic becomes an American lake. If they don't, it becomes a contested war zone. Russia has already militarized the Arctic at a speed that has stunned NATO, refurbishing Soviet-era bases and deploying S-400 missile systems along the route. China, too, has officially declared itself a near-Arctic state and launched its Polar Silk Road initiative. Washington is now using a dual-track pressure campaign to secure the region. Economic seduction, engaging directly with local Greenlandic politicians to offer a compact of free association. This would include direct aid and U.S. passports for Greenlandic citizens in exchange for control over their defense. The geopolitical squeeze demanding that Denmark militarize the island to meet NATO obligations, a cost that would effectively bankrupt the Danish social model. The U.S. is making the asset so expensive to hold that the owner is forced to sell. This is not a drill. The Office of Management and Budget has already been tasked with calculating the absorption costs for Greenland. This includes everything from transitioning the island to the U.S. dollar to integrating the social security systems of 56,000 residents. While President Trump pledged at Davos in January 2026 that he would not use military force to annex the island, his administration remains committed to drawing the island closer by any other means. The doctrine here is simple. Sovereignty is not a right, it is a responsibility. If you cannot defend your territory from the sharks, you lose the right to own it. The U.S. believes that if they act now, it is a diplomatic crisis. If they act later, it is a kinetic war with China. The maps are being updated. The expansion of the American border is happening in real time. It's about the rare earths in your phone, the shipping routes for your goods, and the radar watching the sky. Greenland is the Gibraltar of the North, and the money echo tells us that the U.S. will not stop until the deed is in hand. History is a circle, and right now we are witnessing the start of the next great American land grab. History does not just repeat, it rhymes. So make sure you're listening for the next Money Echoes, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.